He's a soldier on the finish line. All right, everybody get the Fasha chant started. Oh my god. Another ult to rub it in their face? No, okay. I thought maybe. Come on, Fasha.
Another clash. If she wins this,
Fasha!
that's it.
Fasha! No, Fasha!
Come on.
Just finish him clean up. No!
He's risking his life. Oh my god.
No!
Fasha!
Just hit him! Just hit him! No!
And oh!
Oh! Oh my god, Fasha! Just do it!
Oh!
Oh god! Why do you have to give us a heart attack at the very end? Oh my god!
But she did it though.
What a hype! Oh my god, Fasha is the very first character in League history to sweep that team. Wow. Very, very exciting stuff. That was my heart there at the end.
So, Donut, how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I mean, I know the league already knows a lot about you as the coach of the androids. And I must say, as a new coach in this new league, you are definitely looking like one of the more up-and-coming members of this league. Putting things together, getting all these builds, making sure everyone's nice and neat for their upcoming matches. And
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Of course. I mean, it's the truth. And speaking of being an upcoming coach, you're new to Kami's Lookout. You're asking all these coaches for advice. You're being able to see some of the inner workings of the league. And one of the things that's new and hadn't been announced till later in the league season was the All Star games. So
Yes.
when you heard the announcement in Kami's Lookout, what were your initial thoughts on it?
I was very excited to see the All-Star games. We never had something like this before, obviously. So anything new to the league to give a sort of like a breath of fresh air, if you will, is very, very. We'll invite that in definitely. When I saw what the games would be, the All-Star match and the sweeper games, I was like, oh, well, this is really cool. I think we heard about the sweeper games after the All-Star matches was announced. But even just the All-Star event itself was very exciting to see, we had a possibility of, we see Majin Vegeta versus, Nuova, or, a possibility of TN versus, Bardock or Broly. And it's like, oh, well, this would be very exciting matchups, right? And especially when you see, we always have in the regular league, we have, Majin Vegeta having to carry the team on his back, or you have the likes of Android 18 carrying her team. So when you have the stars, the MVPs of each individual team almost being represented, it's really cool to see that. And it's really, you have a lot of like what ifs in your head, right? So that going into the and hearing about the games, that was what my first thought was. Oh, what about this matchup? About that matchup? Well, what build will they do on this? Because if we have 18 Majin Vegeta and Future, will they share any Patoras? Will they do sharing AIs? Not AIs, but blue Patoras that can flash for each other? Will be some new innovative build that team that actually use. So a lot of things went to my head when I first heard the announcement.
Gotcha. And after hearing that announcement, especially after we heard how the fighters would be picked and how the head coaches would be selected for both of the teams, did that give you any motivation to excel even further in the league than you already had planned to? Or was it more like it's a nice bonus, but it's not too much on my radar?
In regards to in regards to improving for the actual standings to get the head coach of the team, or just in general?
Oh, definitely for for you personally as head coach.
I don't think it actually motivated me to do anything different or strive to hit a certain goal. But the main thing I took away from that was saying, oh, well, okay, so coaches gonna be picked in this regard, right? Top two get be team captains, then everyone else just randomized in. So I didn't really think too much about of a getting to the top spot as head captain, because I was like, well, my voice as a coach will be heard no matter what in either team, right? And so I wasn't too concerned about that. And we all, as coaches, we all know how to include the team members, include everyone into the conversation. That's kind of what our job is, right? So I was saying that, like, okay, I'll get my voice heard anyway. But my first thought was, oh, I had to work with, possibly you, Oasis, or Spoofy, or Malachi again, which would be really cool. Or maybe there's a chance I can work with Buzz or Toshiro again. So I was like, think about that, being able to work with certain individuals on a team building process instead of looking about being a team captain for the team.
Understandable. So you're more of a team player than a standalone, have it my way, I'm in charge kind of guy. That's admirable.
Definitely.
Admirable for sure. Do you think that's the same sentiment that the other coaches felt about when they heard the All-Star games were announced, or?
I think generally, obviously there's a few outliers in anything, right? So I'm sure maybe one or two was like, oh, I want to go in for that top spot. But I think the majority was just being able to work with different coaches or different former supporters was just more than enough, right? And some people obviously didn't really may not have cared too much either way, right? They say, oh, it was a fun event. I'm not really going to put too much into it. Just kind of be there and help out if needed, but I'll mainly just take the back burner. But from the general feedback that I've heard, and I've talked to many people in the server, it seems like a lot of people are just really cool to be able to talk to different coaches and kind of work with them on a more intimate basis.
Gotcha. So it seemed like there was a generalized, it's a good spot to be in, but it's not exactly where I care to aim for. Like, my aim is just to make it to the playoffs. Not exactly.
Fair enough.
Gotcha. And then earlier you mentioned about representation in the All-Star games, and we'll get into that in a short moment, or we'll get into what happened during the All-Star games in a short moment. But do you think that the way the games were handled, do you think everyone was fairly represented in terms of character-wise, in terms of fighter-wise, team-wise, or do you think that could have been changed a little bit?
I looked at it two different ways, right? I could think of, if I'm doing it as I'm selecting the top 10 fighters, we can simply do, we'll take the top 10 in the standings, right? But I take away the audience participation of it, right? And in most All-Star events, they have a voting mechanism, right, to elect the All-Stars, right? And so I feel the top 50, the top 50,000 and above, right, for the average damage was actually a good way to go about that, to say, hey, you do a bar and a half, or a character and a bar worth of damage every week, right? Every time you step onto the field. So you should be able to also. I think that is a fair assessment, and I feel that was a good spot to land on for this year. Going forward, I don't know how well they'll hold up. It may do better or worse, obviously. But I think for now, this is a good starting point. In regards to how it's handled from then on, I think that I know that coaches got slightly a bit more weight than the regular supporters. I think it was like a 3 votes instead of 1 vote type of thing, if I remember correctly. And I think that may be lowered down to 2 instead of 3. I think while coaches generally have more hands-on or more in-depth knowledge of the league, just from either years of experience or working more closely with a certain team than others, I don't think it was that that's different as a supporter to a coach, since I've been on both ends there. So I think instead of 3 votes counting for the coaches, maybe 2 votes may change some of the representatives for the All-Star event.
Gotcha. So maybe a couple changes here and there to make it more fair in terms of representing all aspects of the league in terms of our high achieving members. That's fair. As a whole, though, outside of representation, do you think this event failed to bring us all together for an entertaining moment on our Saturday evenings, or do you think it succeeded and did its job?
Oh, definitely succeeded.
Okay. And how do you think it succeeded?
I think it brought a lot. Obviously, the coaches brought together, right? But I think this was one of the more probably the most amount of people we've had chatting in the live stream that I've seen in quite a while. So that was really cool to see. I think the last time I saw it hit this much was probably either the showcase matches or one of them, and then the bowl from last year. I think those are the only 2 times I saw it that exciting in the chat. May not have been in the chat too often to actually one that I'm usually in the watch party, but from what I see, the chat was very active. The supporters were all, seemed to be very into the All-Star event, kind of saying, oh, I hope that, Say Woman gets picked up. I hope Hurtgirl gets picked up. I hope, 18, some of the key members of some of the lesser, not lesser, but weaker teams in the standings, seeing them have the moment to shine. A lot of people were really excited to see what they can do. Obviously, the sweeper games as well to add on to the All-Star match. Tons of people were popping off in the chat, both in YouTube and on Discord, talking about how well Golda was doing, or even a pool was doing, right? And there's some hype moments, right? There's a lot of hype moments in there. So I thought as a whole, it kind of just, it felt very attuned to the a regular week, right? And I don't know if that was intended or not, because it is the All-Star. You want it to be a little bit above, if you will, right? But I think it did its job well enough to still have everyone participate, still have everyone's interest, still have people show up for the matches. And I think in that respect, they did a very good job. Hello?
With all the success this has had in its first launch, do you think that, outside of, coaches having 3 votes count or having 1 vote count as 3, do you think there's anything else that we could do differently to make it even more of a better event in the future?
I don't know if there's like a certain thing you can do. I think there's like tweaks or small changes you can make to both events. Like obviously the All-Star event could be like, oh, well, no more than 1 representative to a team. So obviously Rugrats had good chance in a Rayleigh, so one of them would have to step down, right? I think that's a fair thing you can think about. And then in regards to sweeper games, I can say, well, I know a lot of people are talking about the length of it. So people are like, oh, well, instead of having 5 members, have 4 members, maybe have those 4 members be slightly stronger, just to make it more feel like a gauntlet. But you also don't want to make it too similar to the gauntlet at the end of the bowl. So it's a fine line for that. But I don't think there's anything that I can think of off the top of my head to say, hey, do X, Y, Z, and this will be a different event you can do. So yeah.
Gotcha. That's fair. From my own perspective, it seemed like the sweeper games and the All-Star games ran very fluidly, and there's not many changes that I could recommend right now myself to make it even more outstanding side event. But 2 more questions for you at least. How do you think that these 2 side events will impact the league in the future, if at all?
In the future, I I don't think the All Star event will impact too many things. In all honesty, I think the sweeper games will have more impact as a whole on the league, simply because we were gifted the opportunity to see a lot of different builds on characters we had not seen before. So like Eternal Life on 16 being one of them, right? We never see that. So if one of those comes to do very well, despite being against some of the lesser members of the league, but still seeing them do well, it may open the opportunity to say, hey, Red Rats, why don't you try this build on Goten, or hey, Androids, why don't you try this build on 16, right? And that could open up a different build path for the main season, right? Or playoffs. So I think that could be something you look at.
Gotcha. Okay. And then if we had space for another event, what kind of event would you like to see, if at all, right now?
Interesting. I think you can do it almost similar to a. You can't really do an MVP, so you don't have the MVP booked out. You can kind of do like kind of like they have in a Smash, the Smash games. They have like the All Star thing, the baseball bat, and you gotta hit it as hard as you can, right? You can do a tournament of person with the highest damage combo wins, right? Obviously that could be something like, just have Kid Buu and do a death ball, right? Or do Bros Kamehameha, right? Or Father Stun, right? Or any of the cutscenes, right? Basically, and now you can do something like that. But I think that is something that's possible. You kind of set up your build to make that happen as best it can, right?
Right.
Now, obviously that could be a little RNG based, but the whole lead is RNG based, right? So can't really complain too much. That's the only thing I think about off the top of my head right now.
So maybe in that case, we could do maybe who can finish off their opponent the quickest. Like
sure.
Set them off against like
Same, highest damage combo, quickest to defeat the opponent, etc. Right.
Hey, that sounds good. Honestly, I can imagine that already being set up by Gome.
Yeah. And if you have a modder make it where you can do multiple Cell Junior, multiple Cybermen, multiple Metacooler, right? Kind of like, can you beat these 5 or these 4? I mean, if you can, how fast? Right? Similar to this, but maybe I don't know how you tweak it to make it more, not the same thing, but something akin to that type of thing. Defeat all these random characters and go fast.
That sounds like something for future us to figure out.
Yes.
Well, anyways, Donut, I do appreciate you being here. We'll talk to you in a bit to discuss the results of both the Sweeper games and the All-Star games. So just sit tight, man.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Hey, Zem. How's it going?
I'm good.
How's your day been, man?
Long, tiring.
There. What were your thoughts when you heard we were getting new events getting added to the league?
I really like the idea. This league has been going on for over 10 years, and while we had some side events, they were the same kind of events that we've been playing over and over again. So with this new league, this new channel, new fresh ideas to kind of make the new events more welcoming. And we saw that we had a lot more viewers come in for this kind of all-star event because it was more new friendly. It's not as intimidating. It's like, hey, this is week 10 and oh wait, I gotta catch up with all these previous weeks before I can really get into it. While All-Stars, it was like just a fun event for everybody to join in. So it was really, really cool to see, and hopefully we are able to pull off more events in the future.
Gotcha. As a supporter, from your perspective, which event did you enjoy more, the All-Star games or the Sweeper games?
I enjoyed the Sweeper game because I actually had a member of mine participate while in All-Stars. Unfortunately, all of the Bujin members got eliminated from even making the 50K to even be voted on for All-Stars. So, yeah, that's not as fun.
That hurts.
Yours represents.
So I'm glad that you touched on that, because earlier I was talking to Donut, especially on representation in the All Star games, and I was wanting to get your thoughts on that too. Do you think that the All Star games had fair representation, or do you think that it was done in a fair manner to get representation, or do you think that it could have been the voting process could have been done better to more accurately represent teams in the league?
Overall, I think the whole deal with the All Star event was pretty fair. No complaints. It's just unfortunate and bad luck. Reaching 50K on average is definitely worthy of being put into the pool of being selected. Having the input of the coaches plus the input of the the audience is really nice to have an influence on that as well. And overall, how the teams were picked and how everything went down was pretty cool. It's just unfortunate bad luck, but I'm fine. I'm just a little salty.
I mean, we probably all would if our characters didn't make it in, especially if they did do well this season. Well, speaking of which, doing well this season, do you think that when you heard the All Star games being announced, sure, the actual how it was going to be done wasn't completely known to the public, but do you think that created a sense of motivation to do well this season?
I mean, we want to do well every season, but I think it changed the strategy. Some people were playing like, oh, well, this character is already at 50K. I don't want to put them in and, ruin their record. And some teams, wanted that character to try to get in. There was a lot of math involved to try to calculate to see exactly what numbers those players need to hit. So it was just a new approach to the league that we really haven't seen in a while. So it was a new, fresh experience, and I really enjoyed it.
Gotcha. So you think it had a positive effect on the league as a whole, getting people to do things a bit differently, different strategies being created, different modes of thinking being utilized, or do you think maybe it was a bit negative since people were benching 50K players so that they make it to the All Star games? People were trying to underperform in order to get more damage on another character, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think?
The 50K threshold makes sense. I still feel like there may be one big flaw when it comes to maybe doing the stats, and definitely involves with not taking your man, not cleaning up your plate. Unfortunately, some characters like Self, who 1 week just happened to come up and clean up what was remaining, knocked him out of even being at the 50K. So maybe in the future we can come up with a plan to be like, hey, if there's only like less than 10,000 on the table, then it shouldn't count towards your stats, because a lot of people's stats have been hurt just because they come in at the end and there's just nothing, and then it makes them look like a bad character, or it hurts their stats overall because there's just not enough on the table.
This is true. I mean, Future Go is a big example of this. This man should be around 60, 70K if it wasn't for his week 2 performance where he did less than 10K. So you're absolutely correct. Stats can be skewed when having one bad week or 1 week where you're not allowed to do damage is factored into the equation. Overall, though, do you think that the Sweeper Games and the All-Star Games was a success or a failure?
I really found it to be a success. We got a lot of new audiences. It was very new friendly, so not as intimidating as the usual. So hopefully we got a couple more viewers, a couple more subscribers who want to enjoy the regular content that we have. And hopefully we can come up with new events and have more of these special events throughout the season, instead of just right in the smack dab maybe in the middle of the season, maybe split it up into 3 parts. So maybe something along those lines.
Gotcha. And then, so, I mean, you're already mentioning it already, but is there anything else that you would want to see done differently in the future of the All-Star Games and Sweeper Games?
Might be interesting to see the Super Games evolve. Maybe some characters will get picked up, some characters will get popped up. So I don't see the characters that were in the Super Games, those 5, being set in stone, because maybe one will get switched. And of course, representations in the Sweeper Games are characters who are not on the team. So, for example, if we just pick up Bobbity, then Bobbity will not be on the Sweeper Games. So that would be interesting to see how that changes. As for All Stars, maybe having whoever wins between Kami and Guru for next season can then fight the previous season, this previous Kami winners this season, to see who's the god of all gods or something along those lines. So maybe just add another fight at the end and the best of the best.
Gotcha. And I will admit, one of the reasons why I had you on today is because not only are you a supporter, but you're technically, with a heavy emphasis on the technically, an interim staff member, since you are head of testing. So,
Yeah.
as in the eyes of a staff member, do you think everything went according to plan? And do you have any differing opinions than you would as a supporter on the event?
As quote unquote staff, I think things went fairly well. Of course, there's a couple of technical difficulties, but things flowed fairly well. Uh, I believe everybody who was there enjoyed it. It was different. It was new. And I don't see anybody having any real complaints if we would try to do something similar to it in upcoming season. So overall, I think that was fine. As a supporter, I think the event was fine. I'm glad that we added in the sweeper games because All Stars, not everybody gets to participate. Sweeper, it's one from each team. So you're guaranteed to at least have something, part of your team, someone representing your team. So it's interest for everybody to at least come and watch it, even if you're not represented in an All-Star game.
There you go. And lastly, before we head off into discussing what actually happens in the All-Star and Sweeper games, do you think that these two events will have any bigger impact or future impact on the league as a whole going into, season 11, 12, etc.?
Possibly, I could see some of the sweeper characters getting picked up. Godo was looking pretty good, so maybe one of the teams that have Godo on their list might consider picking him up. He was looking fairly consistent even without a build, so that might be what they're looking for. Definitely a pool. A pool looks like something that maybe Derp might want to pick up. I would definitely, if I was on Derp, I would pick up a pool over Jero. So maybe that's something that we might see in the future when it comes to that. As for All Stars, it's really interesting that builds were changed, that you had to approach these 5 people who are generally not even on a team together and build them as if they were. And then you can't just go with the same builds that even got them into All Stars, maybe something similar. And really experimenting with that seems like a lot of fun. So having the coaches do that seemed like a really good time. So I would love to see that in the future.
Fair deal. I appreciate you being here, Zem. And we'll just go ahead and jump into the next portion of this cast, which is discussing all of that took place during the Sweeper Games and the almost disastrous result of the All-Star Games. And we'll see you in a bit. Okay. So, Donut and Zem, let's talk about the first side event we had this season, which is the Sweeper Games. Overall, y'all gave me the general impression that you enjoyed it. Every single team had representation in it, and every single team had a chance to sweep 5 members of our league community who are generally seen as weaker than most. And with that being said, we did have a couple of finishers, and we had a couple of close to finishers. Donut and Zem, did you all have any particular favorites when going into the match or going into the Sweeper Games? Like, who did y'all think would finish out on top?
For me, I thought it'd be Majin Vegeta. No question. Just because of how dominant he was in the main season. The other one I had my high hopes on was Teen Gohan. Those two I was looking at saying, hey, these two have the potential to find a way to beat all 5. Ironically, neither of them did it, but that's my initial impression.
Fair deal. How about you, Zem?
After looking at builds, it definitely seemed like Eternal Life was the key Katara. Both the people who finished in 1 did have Eternal Life. So some of the characters who didn't have Eternal Life really didn't seem like they had enough staying power. 5 characters, 200k, that's a lot. As I was saying when I was commentating, if every single one of those characters took off a bar off of you, you lost. So not having healing definitely hurt. So characters like Teen Gohan, like Majin Vegeta, who weren't on like an Eternal Life build, I didn't feel like we're going to be able to have that staying power. Definitely, it was interesting to see that out of all the builds, that Fasha was the only one who really came up with that Eternal Life defense build. No one else really did that, and she was the one who ended up winning it. One of the few characters who did. So I was very surprised to see that. I thought more characters were going to try defense Eternal Life with how the whole event was structured. So maybe next season we might see more people do that and maybe see more victors.
Most likely so. Honestly, I assumed more people would aim towards B2s since the whole structure of the games was to kill as well, not kill, but take out as many opponents as possible. So doing the most damage as you can seemed like the best strategy. And the thing that does the most damage over time tends to be B2s. So I wasn't too surprised that people shied away from tankiness and survivability over damage, but you're most likely right, Zen. Definitely having that tankiness to survive 5 whole characters seems to be the strat. But I do want to mention though that
Yeah,
16 only taking out 3 people. What do y'all think about that? How'd y'all feel?
I was when I think about it now, I'm like, okay, well, 3 characters, that's not bad. But I'm like, wait, it was Frieza Soldier, Goldo, and not Goldo, General Blue, and like that, and then Babidi. It's like, really? That's who you beat? And I was like, all right. So 16, we knew you do damage, and we knew you had to be upfront and personal with them, thus leaving you open for damage. But I expected a little bit more from him. But 3 characters isn't bad, obviously. That was about average for the day. So I thought it was an okay.
Well, and Zem, what did you think about how Majin Buu did? I want your
Uh,
thoughts on that.
I thought he was going to do a little bit better. He was going up to max power, but he wasn't using his ult. He was missing a lot of B2s. And the Flamethrower breaths were nice. Thought maybe latent energy for a little bit of defense on top of his Eternal Life would have been better, but maybe switching that out for maybe Aviation since he had T plus 2 Super minus 1 would have been better. But overall, it was a fun little event. It was fine. Majin Buu was fine. And I'm glad that he was the one that got the representation out of all the Buu members where, you think you're going to send like Kid Buu or Evil Boo. It's like, no, let's just go ahead and send Majin Buu and see how he does. So it was nice to see him.
Fair deal. I mean, I definitely was not expecting Majin Buu as a onlooker to your team. I was expecting Evil Boo to come in, wreck house, but Majin Buu, like you said, didn't do too badly. The Vegetas, though, as Donut mentioned earlier, the Vegetas. What in the world happened? What happened?
I have absolutely no idea. Goldo was pissed. Goldo had enough. He was like, throw a rock in your face. Let me just stun you real quick, punch you a little bit. And we just go. He went to town. He did very well. I was very impressed with Goldo.
Yeah, Goldo went off. Like, this man paralyzed. He threw rocks. I don't think he skewered anybody, but still, this man was popping off. Maybe the Sentai Squad will look into. No, I'm not even gonna try to. Never mind. but
Sentai Squad told there's a free Goldo just waiting for you.
Apparently, but Zem, do you have any maybe insight onto why the Vegetas did work or underperformed, so to speak?
As I said, Eternal Life was the Patara, and none of them had it. Especially, it was very surprising seeing Majin Vegeta, who pretty much got to where he was at when it came to All Stars because of that Patara. And the fact that they decided to go with Rush Blast 3, which is not bad. But when they had the Eternal Life, when he's known for that, I definitely would have went with that. Some of the Vegetas only had 10 days healing. One of the Vegetas didn't have any healing at all, and healing was the name of the game. So I feel like if those Vegetas had Eternal Life, I feel like they would have done a lot better.
That's fair. I also think that obviously the healing on mid Vegeta is due to a building error, which was unfortunate. Obviously it is when that happens. But I do think as a whole, I think a lot of teams kind of underestimated the damage output from the sweeper team. I don't think they really thought like, oh, Godo can do a lot of damage. Oh, a pool can do some damage. Bobbity can do a lot of damage, right? Um, I think people kind of underestimated them, thinking, oh, they'll do like maybe 1,000 damage melee combos, right? Something ridiculously low, right? Considering no build, right? Um, but they still did pretty well doing 4K melee combos, 5K B2, so that adds up quite heftily in a 1v5 scenario. So
Yeah,
yeah, going back to the tankiness, the defense in Eternal Life is the way to go. It looks like.
yeah, you definitely have a point there, Donut. I'm definitely on the side of I'm definitely in the camp that underestimated how much damage, General Blue would do, how much Goldo would do. I was assuming that they would do, at best 10K and then keel over. But no, they pulled their weight in terms of sticking into some of these characters. Uh, but with that being said, did y'all think there was any dark horses in the mix of the sweeper games? Like, who did better than you would have initially thought when going into it?
Um. Hmm. Uh. I I don't think there's a person who did better than I thought they would do. There's just many people who did worse than I thought they would do. If I had to choose someone who did better, I think Super Saiyan Trunks would be the one. I didn't think he'd do, 4 characters. I would do like about average, maybe like 3.5, right?
Mm.
Um, but he did 4 characters, so props to him.
Yeah, Trunks pulling off 4 characters with no healing was very impressive.
Yeah.
You thought that they were just going to whittle him down, but he went in on them and with no healing at all. Very impressive. But that's Super Trunks for you.
Wait,
Yeah.
Trunks had no
Yeah, he
healing?
didn't. Yeah, he had no healing.
What?
He was like one of the 2 characters who had no healing.
You're joking.
No, it was Scouter and Trunks who had no healing, I think. Oh no, and it was Mid Vegeta. Mid Vegeta.
Oh, okay. Okay, Trunks
Yeah.
is better than I thought he. I was sure he had. Okay, I was sure he had 10 days.
He cast out on him, so.
Okay. Okay, this man. I knew he was strong, but I didn't think he would do this well without any healing. Jeez, Muscle, you have a monster. Oy, oy, oy. Either way, are there any final thoughts on the sweeper games before we head over to the main event? Like, how can we do this differently? Maybe different characters. Maybe we could change something, or hell, we can keep it all the same.
I think some different characters, obviously, as the league adapts and evolves, and new characters are added and dropped. I think we'll see some new characters come into the mix here. But I think it was a really good, good first showing for this event. Definitely a lot of people liked it. I had fun building for it. And yeah, I think it'll do well going forward.
How about you, Zem?
Yeah, I think it was a really fun event. Something different. Everybody got to do something, and looking forward to seeing how things change when hopefully we do this in the future.
Of course, of course. And I guess that brings us to the main event of, the side event, that being the All Star Games. Although, to be perfectly honest, it wasn't much of a main event, more of a quick one and done. As Kami 2O's Guru, so quickly. I can't really describe it anything other as a disaster, because nothing, and I do mean nothing, went Guru's way. From the draft to the actual performance, it was rough. It was rough. What do y'all think?
Yeah, it was definitely rough. It was from draft, obviously it wasn't doomed. Just from draft, obviously on paper things looked skewed, but I don't think it was just doomed at that point. There's still avenues for Team Guru to find some advantages. But as soon as you stepped onto the field and saw Broly just get destroyed by Bardock, and it's like,
melee and some grabs, so we'll see.
Yeah, and a small correction. It is Cell Games, but it's at dusk or whatever you want to call this time. What is this? Is it dusk?
Yeah, evening,
Yeah, because
I
it's
think.
dawn and dusk. But anyways, so you didn't notice, but there was a time skip where we spent multiple hours setting up the All Star game. You guys didn't notice?
Just those sweeper matches lasted all day, so now
Yeah.
this is later in the day. Wow, and Bardock though.
Bardock, what? We've been talking about joking stuff, and Bardock has already taken down most of Broly. Wow, what a lead. Oh, but Broly's transforming. But Bardock looks like he's gonna go up to max power here.
Oh, yep, an ult from and
Uh-oh.
he cuts right through that pseudo power that power body with his melee. Ooh! Oh my
Bardock!
god! Oh my god!
Did Bardock take a point of damage?
He healed it off.
And it's like, well, alright, then pack it up, boys. Because yeah, I knew Majin Vegeta was gonna do 2 characters, so it was like, well, I down 3 characters now. That's on. It felt very over after that, but props to really trying to bring it back, and Nuova trying to bring it back a little bit. So there's still avenues, but Kami's had such a strong lineup. They definitely did the homework on those characters.
Oh, for sure. And Zem, I actually have a question for you in particular. As somebody, since Donut and I were part of the draft process, and you were technically outside looking in as a supporter, how did you view the initial draft of the characters when you saw it announced? Like, did you think it was going to be a good fight? You think it was over before it began? Like, what were your thoughts?
I thought it was going to be a good fight. All 10 of them were good characters in their own way, so I could definitely see it swinging either way. Especially since you had to build builds that not necessarily fit with all the characters. Like not all the pieces went together. It seems like Team Kami had easier pieces to work with. They had like Majin Vegeta who didn't conflict with 18, while on Guru's end there was a lot of conflicting parts that may not have worked, and you would have to change build. And with a lot of untested things, I could see how it went in that direction, and I could easily see it swinging in the other opposite direction. That's what's really interesting about this event, is that you're just kind of taking a shot in the dark, and whoever wins kind of wins it in comparison to were you working with the team, you going with your team during the off season, you testing and testing and testing and getting things consistent. There is no testing when it came to this event, so you just built it and crossed your fingers and hoped and prayed that it worked out, and it did for Kami. Unfortunately, not for Guru, but we'll find out next season. Hopefully, if we do this event again, then I could see it flipping the other way around. So, no, nothing to take it to heart for anybody.
True that. That's very true. I mean, while you're definitely correct in terms of builds had to be altered. There's no testing to be had. It's just build what you know works and throw them into the ring. As a supporter, though, do you think who did you think outside of Majin Vegeta was going to get taken first or second, technically speaking, in the draft?
I thought I thought Hercule was going to be chosen a lot earlier than he really did. Like,
Really?
he didn't get chosen until like what, third or fourth.
Yeah,
When
he's the
he borderline carries his whole entire team by himself. So I thought that definitely him. I thought he was going to get picked up earlier. Majin Vegeta first was a given, but I thought at least Guru first choice was going to be the champ.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I was expecting you to say either Nuova or Future. Wow. Okay. This is why we ask the questions, folks. Herc as a first. Okay. And then in that case, who did you expect to be the last pick, if anyone?
Say a woman.
Say one. Okay.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Yep.
That is fair. Okay. But did you? Okay. What were your thoughts on Android 18 absolutely demolishing Guru with her ult spam, with her B2 spam, and Arale trying to do the same thing, but missing with her woohoos literally every time?
Mm.
What were your thoughts on that?
Unfortunate. I think obviously if the Woohoo's hit, it would have been a lot closer matchup. I don't think it was swung it back into Drew's favor by any means, but it would have been closer, right? And that was the thing actually. You said the Woohoo's missed and all, and I know the pings also missed. So that's a lot of damage. Like you're talking about 10k damage of a ping, right? 8k from Woohoo is like that's a lot of damage adding up, right? Then it's just who hits on the day, who does a better job, and 18 obviously does what she does best. Ult spam, B2 spam, just doesn't let up. So it's good to see her perform on the main stage again, like on a high stage.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I guess we've been here for a good bit, and I think it's time we end it off with one last question for the two of you.
Yeah.
If you could make your own all-star team, who would be on it?
If I had to choose, that's 5 characters.
Oh yeah, anyone in the league. Any five.
Okay.
Any five.
Majin Vegeta, Cell, Tien, Future, and we'll do the champ.
Tien's
Okay.
an interesting pick. And how about you, Zem?
Cell, Evil Boo, Majin Vegeta, Nova Shenron, and the champ.
It seems like I've really underestimated the power of the champ.
Champ. Hell yeah.
Well, I do appreciate you two being on the show today and all the input you've given throughout this session.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I hope y'all take care.
You too, man.
And to all our listeners at home, y'all have a great day.